Agni parthene despina achrande
Last month, I had the wonderful opportunity to watch, in a theater, Man of God, the 2021 film about the life and works of Saint Nektarios of Aegina, directed by Jelena Popovic. I will prompt you now that this is a religious film, an explicitly orthodox film. If that's not your cup of tea, I understand. But having the unique opportunity to attend one of two showings of the film in the United States with members of my parish, it was quite the experience that I wanted to share with you and to recommend the movie. It was the first time since the beginnings of our current crises that I had gone to a movie theater. The last film I had saw in theaters before that was in 1917, back in January of 2020, over 2 years ago. I had just moved to where I am now, long before my steps of coming back to faith, and even before my kidneys had failed. So today, I really wanted to just take the opportunity to not only review the film and talk about it, offer some highlights along the way in relation to faith, filmmaking, and focusing on what matters. After all, what kind of chance is it to really review a film that has moved you in such a way after years of being moved by life's own trials and tribulations? I would like to begin by offering a reassurance that unlike most films that are overtly Christian in the West, this one fits into its own unique place outside of the Western, specifically American Christian film spectrum, where on one end you have Passion of the Christ, and on the other, something like God's Not Dead. Perhaps this is the case of a Christian film being not made in the United States that's actually good, like that of A Hidden Life. Man of God is a competently well-made film, well-acted, shot, covers most of the major highlights of the life that St. Nektarios lived. I would be remiss if I didn't say something about St. Nektarios of Aegina, but the film does so much to cover his life and works, I don't know really where to begin. He was born in 1846 and was reposed in 1920, dealing with Greek independence, the changes within the church, and the politics therein that would set the course of his life, but never have him waver from his faith. If you were wondering about the chant at the beginning of the film, Agni Parthene, or O Virgin Pure, was actually written by St. Nektarios, only to be given music to decades later after his death. His life, works, and the miracle at the end of his life are all featured within the film, and is a good introduction to this saint. Other Orthodox YouTube channels like that of Trisignon Films have already covered his life in detail, but the film brings it to life like no other way before. If my faith serves as a bias to this review, I will say that openly that it does, but it shouldn't discourage you from taking the chance to view the film yourself. I went into the film relatively blind, my knowledge of the saint somewhat limited outside of his praises within the Orthodox world. My own readings and lessons currently as a catechumen have been focused elsewhere. I did purchase a biography of him after watching this film, as no film can accurately capture a man's life in its entirety, surely as any biopic doesn't. It was a quiet film, no major scores or musical pieces that really hit the mood home. There were a few instrumental leitmotifs of Agni Partheni that I could detect throughout, but nothing that really stuck out to me is quite memorable. Quiet as it should be, in my opinion, with the focus on the works of St. Nektarios, the dialogue, the prayer, his interactions with everyone throughout his life. I will admit, however, that the dialogue is a bit stiff, and I wonder if that's in part of using Greek actors to do the entire film in English. This is a film that you can watch without the need of subtitles, if that's a pet peeve of yours or you just dislike foreign films. The benefit that the film also has going for it is that its intended audience, Orthodox Christians, are already directly considered in mind. He is considered a well-known 20th century saint in the Orthodox world, one of which is well worthy of documenting after reading up more on his life after watching the film. However, even if an outsider to the church, or even Christianity in general, the film does a good job at making his life and work accessible to a greater audience. One of the characters of the film, Costas, of one of the administrators of the Rosarios ecclesiastical school in which St. Nektarios was assigned to work in, serves alongside him as an outsider, that allows us to already have a sympathetic character to attach ourselves to, understanding yet at the same time walking alongside Nektarios in awe of what he has done with his life. The opposite to him is the president of the school, who cannot stand Nektarios' teachings or the faith itself, yet at the end of his time at the school, stands to respect the saint for simply standing firm to his faith, his principles, and his asceticism. Such trials and tribulations continue as he sets out to rebuild and restore the abandoned monastery on the island of Aegina. The film doesn't cover his early life, or the nature of his youth or priestly beginnings, yet the film does begin with probably what sets off the entirety of his life and path to sainthood, his expulsion from Egypt, stripped of his position as the metropolitan of Pentopolis, and forced to return to Greece, a nation, newly formed, that he isn't technically even a citizen of. None of this, however, stops him in his pursuit of an ascetic life. Despite every challenge, obstacle, accusation, slander, and word of criticism levied against him falsely, whether it be by parents, or more importantly, the inner political machinations of the church, he continues on, knowing his mission goes far beyond the politics of the world before him. That what stands before his way, he recognizes is out of his control, and to take a line from the film, with faith, things just work out. In these matters, I felt reminded of Matthew 6:33, to first seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. As I had mentioned earlier, yes, the film is quiet, but I think very much on purpose. Nektarios in this film, as I imagine as he was in his life, is soft-spoken, and each challenge is met with a quiet resolve. Some of the loudest parts of the film are his confrontations from his secular superiors, as well as his clerical ones, wherein all of the slander and the political moves of both the state and the church are used against him. Nektarios remains steadfast, of course, until the end. Now, I don't mean to spoil the film, but as you can tell by what I've shown on screen on the, casting list, Mickey Rourke does play a very important role at the end of the film, playing the famous paralytic, cured of his paralysis when Nektarios passes away. It is almost completely silent, and is wonderfully acted. The effects themselves in the film are quite good on that note as well, both for the historical setting, but also the makeup to show the aging of the characters throughout the film, as it does cover Nektarios' entire adult life. The film is also authentic to Orthodox life, both within the services of the church, but to the teachings of asceticism that seem quite foreign to the West. In my Protestant upbringing, the idea of monasteries, hermitage, or the basic tenets of asceticism would have been something seen only in caricature-like depictions of the Middle Ages and Christianity. With guidance, I've been taking up reading the Philokalia, and many of the early writings of the Church Fathers focus on the ascetic life, something I couldn't imagine, yet after seeing this film, I do think needs to be brought back into the consciousness of the Western mind. One might ask skeptically, of course, isn't that just owning nothing and being happy, but with religion? Perhaps, but the comfort, and better yet the reward, of seeking the spiritual life is something I have found to be at the heart of Orthodoxy and its church teachings. As I write during the time of Lent, the Great Fast, I'm reminded of St. John of the Ladder, and the first step, of course, to be the renunciation of the world. Part of me always finds it humorous when I hear my priest discuss how easy it is to get wrapped up in the bickerings of opinions on social media or prognosticating on things well outside one's control. Odd, because I do this somewhat for a living, because so many of you find my opinions and lectures worthwhile to support me financially. I think this is partially why I find the film so touching, not just because I'm a catechumen to the church, but because it shows a way to persevere during times of great difficulty and struggle that are well outside your control, and to continue your path no matter what strength of current is laid before the river in front of you. But if I were to move back to the film and perhaps leave on a concluding note, I would say that if you can get yourself a copy of the movie, it is well worth your money. If not yet available, I know sailing the high seas is also an option. I rate this film highly, even if the somewhat stiff dialogue is there, It's well worth a watch, in showing not only the presence of the ascetic in orthodoxy, how faith in God and determination to do good works prevails above all, and just what an impact one man can have against all odds in the worldly realm of politics, both religious and secular. Many throughout the film rail against the idea of a religious life, and that those who feel drawn to join him. One major aspect of the film is when running the monastery, primarily consisting of nuns, he is accused both by the police as well as the church of complaints of running a harem or sleeping with the nuns. And yet, when the proof and the evidence is all clearing his name as well as that of the monasteries, even when assaulted, he stands firm within his beliefs. And I feel like so many of us today, whether you've been doxxed, whether you feel uncomfortable sharing your opinions to certain individuals, or have even been threatened by those who disagree with you, it offers us a very strong reminder and a strong presence to stand firm in our beliefs. If we truly are to stand on the side of good, then good will inevitably prevail, whether in this life or the next. Even if you're not a Christian, I do think that you might be able to get better insight not only into the authentic Christian life and the life of an Orthodox saint, but also in ways in which we can learn in order to prevail against the evils that surround us. Too often times people will raise their eyebrows and think that the concept of spiritual warfare is bunk, but more often than not, what we really need to be doing is donning our spiritual armor. So in regards to this film, Man of God, I do highly recommend that you watch it, and what I will say is what every church will tell you, and have this one simple recommendation. Come and see. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. And be prudent, everyone.